Okay, well, thank you for joining the session. I'm going to include the link of the document that we're going to use today. I'm going to post it in the chat. So if you don't have access to it, you can grab it from the chat. Let me see if I can put that in there. And please let me know if you have trouble with the link. Let's see. Okay. Has anyone did anyone have trouble clicking on the link?
It worked for me.
Oh, perfect.
I clicked on it and it says Generative AI LLMS for Dummies. Is that correct?
No, that can't be true.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, how can I get that?
You scared me there.
No, I got Generative AI Handbook for him.
Okay, yes, that's the right one.
You
Here,
sent it already. You got it.
yeah, I posted again. You scared me, Professor Gakwa
Gökçura.
Yokchora.
Why did I have that? Why? How come I?
No.
I copy it. When I click on it, I cannot open it.
I think if you just click on it from the chat, it should open automatically on your browser.
It says pick an account. It's asking me to go to my.
Oh, yes,
Oh.
it will require you to log in with your CUNY account because, now with, yeah.
Okay, I'm having Generative AI Information and Guidelines, Faculty Handbook.
There we go. Yes, we got it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think we're at the 1 o'clock. I think is it okay? We can start now?
Yes.
Okay, I see more people are joining. It's okay. I will continue to repost the link on the chat because I believe as people join, they won't see the link until they join late, so I have to post it again. So just please excuse me as I post sometimes or repost the link on the chat for those who join late. Okay, so let's begin. I wanted to start the session today with a little bit of sharing some news of what AI and generative AI and how quickly it's moving and how fast, right? And sometimes there's so much information that we miss important details or even just completely the whole topic, right? Because it's just so much that's being tossed our way. It's almost like juggling. You can only juggle so much. And so I'm going to share my screen and share this article that I read the other day. And please let me know if you saw this, but we'll do a vote in a moment. Let's see if anyone was caught this in the news. It's an article from the Washington Post. And this was only a week ago. This was September 18. And the title of the article is Teachers Got Mad About a Cheat Button in Chrome. Now Google's pausing it. A raise of hand. Did anyone catch this one? Heather, you saw that one?
I saw the headline.
Okay, so this was a big one. This was a big one. And I think most of us educators missed it because it was interesting to see Google sneak in this button. It was called the homework help. And it appeared in all Google Chrome browsers. And basically what it did is that it popped up, and if you were using Google Chrome, it will pop up on your Chrome browser, and the icon homework help would show up to students. What happened was that students were then going into, let's say, Brightspace or Canvas or Moodle, and when they were taking their exams, the button was there and they can click on.
Because I looked at the Google Maps and it has like all these different names.
I'm sorry, can you mute your microphone for a moment? Thank you. So what was happening is that students were going on to Brightspace or Canvas or any of the LMS, and they were seeing the button, and as they were taking exams, they could click on the button and it would see what was on the screen, and the student can just get an answer automatically. Real quick, I want to read a few sentences from the article. A student taking an online quiz sees a button appear in their Chrome browser, homework help. Soon, Google's artificial intelligence has read the question on screen and suggests choice B is the answer. When faculty members from several schools, one from Emory University, University of Alabama, University of California, Los Angeles, and Berkeley, automatically emailed and contacted Google, and then Google turned off the app and took it away temporarily. So they paused it. But this is what's happening, right? This is what's going on. It's almost like the rug has been pulled under our feet, and educators are left trying to figure this out on their own. Google never emailed or notified anyone about this tool becoming available to our students. Real quick, I just wanted to share with you a different article now. This is Brightspace response to Google's homework help button. And if you're not part of the D2L Brightspace community, I urge you to, you could join in and register and become a community member within the D2L Brightspace community using your CUNY login. But here is real quick the letter that Brightspace wrote in response to Google Lens homework. By the way, it could go by Google Lens, but also Google Homework Helper. So if you see Google Lens, it's almost identical to the Google Homework Helper. And so here, Brightspace respond, or D2L is the company of Brightspace, and D2L responds. Google's update, Google Lens homework help feature released in Chrome 140 on Tuesday, September 2nd, was just recently released. We understand there are concerns on the potential impact it could have on the integrity of how online assessments are delivered. Google would like for you to share your feedback about this feature with them directly by using the report and issue, right? So this not only affected Brightspace, it affected all LMS, because what was happening is the platform itself, Brightspace or Canvas, wasn't able to disable this feature. So Google's Lens was able to see whatever you're seeing on your screen, and Brightspace or Canvas was not able to turn off that feature or disable that feature for our students. So I just wanted to start off with that, because it's alarming, right? These are the things that are happening now, and it's a little bit of alarming as educators, because as you can see, it's almost like Google and these big companies are force feeding a lot of this AI tools without worrying about the mess, and then who cleans the mess afterwards, right? So we got to think about these things now as our students are exposed to all these AI tools. Okay. I'm going to jump back to the document that.
So, excuse me, so we cannot give any more quizzes and tests online? I use Brightspace.
Yeah, right. So that's the question that comes to mind, right?
Yes.
Right. So if you start thinking about it in that sense, Google did remove the tool, but there are many other tools that can similar to what that tool can do. Even though Google took down the homework helper button, it doesn't prevent a student from downloading many other of these other tools that do exactly the same thing. right? And so that's why I just want to open up. I wanted to open up the workshop or the the seminar today about a little bit about what's going on and how how do we approach this problem as educators, and how can we teach our students and also to help them understand the ethical use of these tools and what's how if they are allowed to use it. If you put on your syllabus that you do allow or you don't allow the use of AI in your course, how is that statement? Is it clear enough to students for them to understand what is acceptable, what's not acceptable? So these are the questions that I just wanted to bring up today as we talk about the use of generative AI in education. So I'm not here to say that you cannot use quizzes and assignments in Brightspace or Canvas or any of these platforms. I'm trying to get more to the root of the problem. How can we assess our students in a way that is much authentic, right? How can we get to have they, to the point, have they mastered the topic? Can they explain to me what that means? They can copy and paste something that's generated in ChatGPT or Copilot that you can just paste it into the assignment, submit it. But at the end of the day, are they able to explain it in their own words, right? Because these tools, these homework helper tools are becoming ubiquitous. They can just access, even if Google were to disable the homework helper tool, which they did, but it might come back. They can still, students can still access many other tools that do the same thing, right? Like here's another one real quick. I can show you. This is another one that's called Cluely, right? And they advertise their product as invisible AI that thinks for you. So, I like how they put invisible because, in other words, invisible means undetectable, right? So if you were taking a quiz or you're interviewing for a job and you freeze and something happens and you need an assistant to give you the answer. So this is how these companies are advertising these products. And usually they don't address the problems. They leave the problem for us to clean up. They just want to make the money and sell the product, but they don't think about what the problems, what problems are these things causing to our students and the society itself. Okay. Any questions so far? Oh, that's my little doggy here. Okay, so oh, 1 second. Go ahead. All right, I let him out. So that's my little dog. So this document that we created at the A2L department, Academic Technologies and Online Learning, is to help faculty members, help them equipped with understanding a little more how students are using AI, how can faculty use AI, how can we detect, or a rubric on detecting how students are using it to cheat or plagiarize work. And so this document is available to everyone. I put it on the chat. If you're just joining now, maybe I can post it one more time in the chat for those who just joined. Let me just stop sharing for 1 second. I'll paste it one more time in the chat because I believe there's a few more people here requesting the link. So let me paste it one more time. Okay. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And to review the document, we created a table of contents from what is generative AI all the way to rubrics on identifying cheating, or what are some AI toolkits for AI detection. We also have a link that takes you to the FAR report, which was created by our Ethics and Integrity Officer, Kylie Corleone, who's no longer our Ethics and Integrity Officer. I believe the new person now is Jonathan Thiel. Johan Thiel, sorry. Johan Thiel is our new Academic Integrity Officer. So basically, it's a guide to help you understand the use of AI and how to detect. and I hope you find it useful. And so some of the things we're going to cover in the book, in the guide, is here's a little quick introduction into what is generative AI. You guys can, take your time and review some of that. I included in here a tips on how to prevent students cheating with generative AI. The first one I have here is state your AI policies on your syllabus. Be transparent with your students. Prevent confusion, and list what is allowed and what is not allowed in your course. Require students to sign the syllabus and submit it as an assignment so that they have read your class policies and understand the repercussions that come with cheating. So that's the first one that I have listed there. Anybody have any comments about the first one on listing your policies on your syllabus? I also provide, if you were one of those early adopters using simple syllabus, in simple syllabus, we also provide a boilerplate of verbiage that you can just use. If there's three options that we provide. If you allow the use of AI, or you allow the use of AI in certain circumstances, or you do not allow the use of AI. And so that is available in simple syllabus as well. But any comments so far on making your AI policy visible to students on the syllabus?
Yes. Hi, this is Janetta Espinoza. How are you, everyone? Thank you, Jose, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I do have a question regarding the city tech's policy on AI. Is there some kind of general broad policy? And is that the one that's listed on simple syllabus?
Yes, that is the one that is included in the simple syllabus template. It has two
Okay.
links. There is one that points to the CUNY AI policy, and then the second one, it points to the AI task force suggestions. And so those two links are there on the simple syllabus, and you can also find it here on the guidelines. It's over here under, let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is, right? So academic integrity policy. This is pretty much identical to what you'll see in the simple syllabus. So here's the CUNY, so the CUNY academic integrity policy, and then the city tech's commitment to academic integrity. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Shadi, you have a question, Professor Gadari?
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing the information. My question is that one of the issues we have been facing over the last year was that in our, let's say, in our mathematics classes, we can say that as an instructor that the homework, that the quiz, that the assessment was done by AI. So by just looking at the, let's say, the time or everything that is included in the performance of the student, the instructor can suspect that this is done by AI. However, technically there is no way to prove it. And in some cases, even the instructor used some tools to say that, okay, this is generated by AI. We were told that at CUNY does not recognize any tool. So you cannot make a claim based on using any tool to say this was generated by AI. And coming back to my first comment, I don't know, let's say I put on my syllabus a policy that the homework, quizzes, exams needs to be done with with you, and if we recognize that it's been completed by AI, you will get 0, right? But what is difficult is that when you have that conversation with the student, how can you prove that? So in some case, that becomes the student says, no, it's me, and then we have no support to actually move forward with our policy.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Gadari, for bringing that up. So to your,
Can
there's,
I,
to
sorry, can I
unpack,
add some?
to unpack it a little bit, there's several points you made. The AI detectors that are available, and there's many of them, are never 100%, they're never going to be 100% true. So there are times where we'll say is 99%, 98, 97. The problem is that you cannot depend on those AI detectors 100%. And so what I created over here, if you scroll down a little bit to the bottom, I created a little bit of a rubric that helps. And I understand from your subject matter, math, which is very tough, because now with math, there's many tools. There's one called Gauth, Gauth. There's many others that you can just simply with your cell phone take a snapshot of the math problem, and it will give you the step by step, and it will give you the answer. It will solve it for you
That's
in
right.
in two
That's
seconds.
right.
There's
That's
many
right.
there's many tools like that. And so number one, the number one point I'm trying to make is do not depend on any AI detector. What I did was here it is. So I created a little bit of a rubric that will help, kind of like a little framework on trying to help you to detect when you sense something is wrong or something's fishy. Now, this rubric will not apply to all modalities, meaning if you're teaching in person or you're teaching online asynchronous or you're teaching online synchronous, obviously because the different modalities have different ways to assess our students, right? Those who teach in person have a little bit more leverage because in person you can do much more in person as opposed to online asynchronous, which you never meet in person. So just keep that open mind that this rubric is just a framework that you have to adapt based on your modality, in the modality that you're teaching. So what I explain in the rubric, I say, do not base your judgment solely on one tool when evaluating a student's assignment. It is important to run the assignment through several AI detection tools to ensure accuracy and reliability. By comparing the results from multiple AI detection tools, you can reduce the likelihood of errors or false positives. False positives is when the AI detector will say this person is cheating. It believes it's cheating, but in reality, the student never did cheat. And that is the worst possible outcome because now you're accusing someone of cheating when this student never did cheat. And the AI detector is telling you, yes, this student did cheat. So that's one of the reasons why I don't depend on solely on one AI detector. What I do next, again, based on the modality that you're teaching, there are several techniques that I mentioned in this guide. One of them is if you are teaching in person, one technique is to do what we call a baseline writing assignment. This works mostly for English, any course that involves writing.
Right.
And so what you could do is, if you have the luxury of meeting in person, you can have your students in person write a little short paper. You could be an icebreaker. Icebreakers are the best because the icebreakers, if you prompt them correctly, you can learn a lot about your students. Tell me about your summer. How was your summer? Why are you majoring in this? What got you here? What are your opinions about A, B, or C? An icebreaker is great for a baseline writing assignment because now you have a fingerprint. A fingerprint, by that I mean level of vocabulary level of writing. You also learned a little bit about the students. And so you're basically building somewhat of a profile that you can then save and have it in your back pocket for when you have a hunch. And honestly, I've worked in education almost now close to 20 years. I believe that professors have a sixth sense when something is going wrong. Just like a parent, I trust the sixth sense much more than an AI detector. But again, it's up to you to decide how you want. Professors know right away when students are acting a little funny, what's going on, something is wrong. Um, you have a little hunch and it bothers you. You know something is wrong. Let me pull my baseline writing assignment and see if this matches how my student writes. A particular word might stick out that they never use on their paper. Because that happens with AI generated content. It will choose the vocabulary that you know your student will not use that certain word, right? So that's that's another thing you can do. After you've done that, another option that you have is you can hold it again, depending on the modality, right? Depending on the modality you're teaching, you can hold a one-on-one with your student. Because if you have a hunch and you feel that student has cheated or uses generative AI or has plagiarized or has done something wrong, you can hold an individual meeting with the student. Can the student explain the content? Can they explain in their own words what that means in their paper they submitted? We use here a very familiar technique called teach-back method. Teach-back method is used in the medical field. If you ever go to a doctor and they're talking to you in Dr. Lee's or whatever, you can't barely understand any word that the doctor is telling you. They use a technique called teach-back method. And what they ask is they kind of explain to you maybe the problem that you're having in their language, and then they ask you to kind of respond or ask you to explain it back to them, right? So that's a teach back method. And so you're asking students to explain a certain concept that they wrote on their paper, and they have to explain it back to you. And if they understand it, then they pass the test. If they don't explain it, then again, that's another strike. The next step is what I have here, step 4. Maybe make this a little bigger so you can see, because the font is very small. So step 1 was to run it through AI detectors, right, as your sixth sense. The second step was then to maybe match it. If you had the opportunity to do a baseline writing sample, match it to the baseline writing sample. Step number 3, maybe have a one-on-one. Have the student explain to you if they actually understand what they wrote on their paper. And step number 4 is a call to action. So now they get all these strikes. What do we do? So we have what's called the faculty action report, the FAR form. And the link to the form is right here. This is when then you fill out the form and you report the student to the Academic Integrity Office, the AIO. And then that's where the student now has to deal with the AIO, or the Academic Integrity Officer, right? So it's a little bit of a rubric. There's some steps. You can modify this to your own, methods, but also to the teaching modality that you're teaching, that you're that you're teaching in. Did that kind of provide a little bit more of some clear guidance, or makes a little bit clearer on maybe creating a framework on how to report student cheating?
Yes,
The
thank you. That's helpful.
sorry. The ice breaking was very good idea, but this is we need to do at the beginning of the semester. Now it's too late to
Yes.
apply this.
Yes.
And then the other one, to run AI when I have 40 lab report to read. So to run each one several AI modality, it's not realistic to do it.
Yes. So
So
yes to part 1. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yes, so that's hard. Even if it's a good idea, if I could rely on only one AI detector, so that could be realistic to do, but not to do several when you have 40 lab report to read or more. It's very
Correct.
tough. It's time consuming.
No, yes, you're right. It's time consuming, but remember, you're not using it as a measuring stick to say yes or no. It's just kind of leaning. You're like somewhere. Let's say you're somewhere in the middle in the meter, and you're not sure if this student is really cheating or had used generative AI in their paper. Let me run it through an AI detector. Let me see. My hunch is telling me something is wrong because I'm looking at some kind of vocabulary here that I've never seen this person use before. Let me run it through an AI detector, right? So it's not a one fix all. It's not the silver bullet. The other suggestion you made, yes, is true. I failed to mention the baseline writing sample. I highly recommend it has to be done early, maybe week 1 of the semester, because that's
when they introduce themselves.
Exactly. Use it as an icebreaker for them to introduce themselves, and then that's your baseline writing sample. Another tip that I can offer you that I didn't include here in the rubric, another thing that you can do is, and I'm seeing more and more faculty members do this, is what you can do is instead of them submitting a paper to you in a file format, what you can do is have the students add you to the Word doc as an editor. And then what you can now see is the version history of the document. How does that help you? So let me tell you how that helps you. So as a student, instead of submitting a Word doc to you, you don't have access to the versioning control of that document. If they just add you and share it with you as an editor, now what you can do is now you, with the versioning control, you can see when they just copied and pasted a whole 2 paragraphs into the paper, because when you see versioning control, you're going to see two paragraphs. To me, that tells me that was a copy and paste. Does that solve 100% the problem? No. What can students do to escape that scenario? They can actually generate the paper on a separate window and type it. So what I'm trying to say to you is this is almost like a cat and mouse game that we're playing. And I feel that now we have to either reimagine the way we assess our students, or we also have to, I guess, kind of incorporate into the curriculum that there should be pride in your work, right? In your that your work is authentic, because what happens when you get to the real world, an interview and this and that and that. Anyway, I think Professor Barton has a question.
Hi, everyone. And Jose, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate this. But for me, what I do the icebreaker. I don't know if this works, right? And you can tell me, I can receive anyone's feedback here. But in the beginning, I do the icebreaker with the introduction. And I go around the room and let them introduce themselves, but I also make it an official introduction where in week 1, they need to go and write for me what are the things they're hoping to achieve out of the class and what are their apprehensions, if any, and so on. Just like about 3 or 4 bullet points. And I sort of go back to that, right? So that sits there. It's never, it's like a place I go back to. I don't know if that's okay, as opposed to the physical paper, because at the end of the semester, then I have them go back and revisit what are some of the things they hope to get out of the course. Were those expectations met or not? So in the beginning, they're not really seeing it as an official assignment yet, where they're going through AI. They just say, oh, let me just go say this. So if I have a suspicion, it's funny you said that, I usually go back and check that as my gauge. Something I also look at is when the fonts are different. I know what they begin to say, and then the rest was cut and paste over. And I will tell them, I'm surprised that you're writing all the same script, and then the font automatically just switch, to Calibri from Roman times. I will give little hints to it, and then I will look to see if it's a pattern. But I don't know. I don't do the physical paper in the beginning. But what do you think? I should do that, or the?
Yes. Can I say something? But you give them 1 week. You give them 1 week. 1 week, they can have time to go to AI. But when you
No, I don't. I said within the first week. So every
yes,
week.
it's a lot of time.
No, I don't give them 1 week. I don't give them 1 week. The first day of class, we do.
First day of class. Okay, sorry.
We go around and we interact,
Okay,
and then I say go online and jot it for me, so I can have.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But that's how I do it. I don't know, Jose, if I'm okay there. If I.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing, Professor Barton. I love, you and I have met before, and I reviewed your course, and I always tell you the same. The way that you um, allow yourself to be um, available to your students for whatever they need, questions, and I think that's the core of, I think, of the solution that I'm trying to preach today, is that transparency, you know, um, letting them know that you're available to speak to them about anything. Like, you also mentioned the fact that there's a hunch. I strongly believe that, again, that's me from my perspective also, just saying that I trust my hunch more than sometimes I trust the detector, because I can always tell. And again, and that's not the same for all modalities. Obviously, as you're in the classroom, you can tell when a student is zoning off, and they're getting they're yawning and they're bored. I'm like, uh-oh, and then my head, I'm like, this is my time to a little joke, or some activity to get the juices flowing again. When you see these little uh, uh, signs, that's much more difficult to do online asynchronous, and sometimes even online synchronous. So that's the reason why I keep mentioning that, is also, because I know not everyone here is teaching in person. I know everyone here might be doing different modalities. So I keep mentioning that. But I'm a true believer that as a teacher, you can pick up these signs, and I tend to trust those signs much more when I hear a student's excuse for submitting a homework late. Sometimes they tell me this cockamamie story, like, okay, But I like your approach, Professor Barton, because you're really um, open to have a discussion with your students. Tell me why did you go this route? Was it because you had to go to work, or you're a parent, you had to do, which is most of our population of our students, it's they're either parents, and they're either working full time, and sometimes the pressure of having to take a full-time load can push someone to the edge of having to, to get the extra help that they need. So I take those things into consideration, those things heavily into consideration. But I think you're doing the right thing, Professor Barton. I think the icebreaker is not only going to help you create those profiles, create a fingerprint, but also is going to allow you to create an understanding of who your students are, so that if you create lesson hooks, they will better connect with the students, because you can know a little bit about them. And what works great with students is that when you design your lesson plans based on what they're interested in, what matters to them. So not only does it work as a fingerprint, the baseline writing assignment, but it also works as to profile students, and you can use that information for lesson plans. I have a list here that, I don't know if this helps, but here are some alternative methods. How, if we start considering the assessment as a traditional paper-based assessment, is it possible for us to convert a traditional paper-based assessment to something else? So I pose that question for you all, to have an open mind about, if I have a paper-based assessment, and is it possible to take it and convert it to something else that could provide much more authentic responses from my students? So the first one, what I did, the first one that I listed here is a digital storytelling assignment. So I've done this one before. I used it at FIT when I was working there, and in FIT, there's a lot of humanities courses, art history, there's a lot of heavy humanity courses over there, and a lot of paper-based assignments. So that's where I felt, hey, this is a perfect place to try this out. Not to take away from the writing, students still have to write, right? But in the writing, in the digital storytelling assignment, they take their writing to create the research. In most cases, the faculty actually allow them to use some type of AI use with citations. But the final product at the end, whether was it a video, was it a podcast, was it, whatever it was, the students actually had to get on the camera, speak, and tell that story in a way that made sense to everyone. So just like when we had to take our driver's test to make sure that we knew how to learn how to drive before you got a driver license, this is something similar to that, right? You got to show me that you know it, show me that you can tell me the story, and show me that you can explain it in your own words. So that was the first one. A second one, which is similar, could be oral presentations, right? Maybe if you have maybe oral presentations, having the student develop those soft skills of speaking in a classroom, overcoming anxiety, that they most likely in any job in the workforce, they're going to have to develop that skill. Again, not taking away the writing portion of it, because you still have to write, right, to come up with these presentations. So that's another example. One-on-one check-ins. And yes, this could be time consuming. So what I do one-on-one check-ins is when I have the hunch, when I feel there's something wrong with a student, I can tell, I can have a one-on-one check-in with that specific student and say, look, I saw your homework assignment, there's words in there that is not part of your vocabulary. I haven't seen you use these words before. Tell me what happened, what's going on? Again, with Professor Barton's approach, we want to be, you want to be able to meet them where they are, kind of like understanding a little bit what happened, why did they go this route, and let them explain for themselves what happened. The other one I like a lot is number 5. It's not an easy one to do, but if you learn how to do it right, it can give you a lot of return on investment. It's the flipped classroom model. And the flipped classroom model, what it does is, and it can work in an in-person class, it can work online asynchronous, and it can work in online synchronous. It can work in all modalities. The flipped classroom model, what it does is it splits the class into 2 parts. What happens in the classroom, what happens outside of the classroom. You as a professor have to decide what works best in the classroom and what works best outside of the classroom. So you might decide that you're not going to lecture anymore. You don't want to lecture. And you have these video recordings that they have to watch on your own time. This happens outside of the classroom. What's going to happen in the classroom now? Now you have an hour and a half or 2 hours. What's going to happen in the classroom? Well, I can do, based on the homework that they did, I can tell who's struggling, who was using AI. I can get a hunch for that. And in the classroom, I can do those one-on-one check-ins. Okay, Johnny, get in front of the class, explain to us what you did and for the homework assignment. Again, much more authentic, right? Or maybe you might want to do more discussion-based in the classroom. Now, the flipped classroom model falls apart if students come to class not prepared, because it's based on students having to do the work on your own time. So it's a little bit of a much more complicated approach, but if done correctly, it could bring in high return on investment for you. If you assign points for the homework, so that forces that, they understand, okay, well, if I don't do the homework, I'm going to lose points, then most likely your students will come, there's a likelier chance students will do the homework and come prepared to the class. So that's important, making sure that any type of assignment that you put has point value to it, because the flipped classroom model really falls apart if they don't come prepared to the classroom. There's another one that you could take a look at. It's number 6, and I call it R maps. And if you want to stick to paper-based assignments, which is fine, I mean, the traditional paper-based assignments, what you can do is you follow the R maps, and the R stands for real world application. So that's what the R stands for. So whatever the assignment is that you're having them do, somehow connected to the real world, so that they understand the why. Why am I doing this? Right? If there's no if there's no why to the assignment, it's almost like the movie Karate Kid. I don't know if you remember the movie Karate Kid, when Mr. Miyagi is forcing Danielson to paint his house, paint the cars, and he felt that he was being taken advantage. He wanted to learn karate, but this guy's making him do all the chores. He didn't know that he was learning. Right? So real world application means a lot to them, because they understand, oh, I understand. Now I know the why this professor is making me do this, because when I get to the real world, I'm going to use this in the real world. Right. So the second part to it is the M, multimodal forms of expression. Multimodal forms of expression is how can I get our students to express their mastery of a topic? We tend to lean on writing a lot. So why cannot we connect the writing to a poetry or a poem or a podcast or a video or something that connects to the writing? So similar to the digital storytelling, you're kind of allowing them to produce multimodal forms of expression to show mastery for a topic. So that's another, option that you can add to this RMAPS framework. Number 8, the most important one that we all talk about is authenticity. We want them to produce authentic work, right? So authentic assignments mirror real world tasks. So if I'm teaching an accounting course, that assignment maybe shows them how to do a balance sheet, right? How can I connect the assignment to the real world again, right? How can I show them that they're developing a skill in the process of doing the homework? They're learning something that means something to them. Number 9, which is connected to that, is project-based learning. So project-based learning is basically project-based learning engages students in extended inquiry-driven projects that address real-world problems, fostering critical thinking, the big one, critical thinking, problem solving. I want you to solve a problem. We don't know what our future workforce is going to look like with AI and what's happening. One thing I can guarantee you is that these companies are going to look for students or prospective employers that can solve problems. So how do we teach them to solve the problems? Whether it's with AI, whatever it is, but they need to solve the problem. So incorporating problem solving into your assessments so that they actually have to think about how to solve a problem, not from analogous I can never say that word, analogous thinking that, this is how you build a rocket. Let me look at how NASA built a rocket. Let me copy NASA and I can build a rocket. No, 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 no. How do we think outside of the box? Almost similar to first principles thinking, right? So I'm trying to build electric vehicles. If I'm trying to sell electric vehicles, the cost of the battery is very expensive. So do I stop selling electric vehicles? No, I go to the problem. The problem is the batteries are too expensive. How do I make the batteries cheaper? Okay, let me see what materials it takes to build a battery. If I collect all the materials, it costs $80 to build a battery. So that's the thinking that you want to get the students, right? Think outside of the box, right? Not thinking like, oh, it's always been done this way, so let me just copy. So having them think outside the box, challenging them, first principles thinking, think outside the box. So that's project-based learning. Number 10, scaffolding, very important. I think this is super important because what happens most of the times is what faculty members tend to do a lot of the times is they'll have very few formative assessments. And by formative assessments, I mean low stakes assessments throughout the semester. And then they'll hit you with a big midterm and they'll hit you with a big final. So, and then the midterm is worth 40 and then the finals were 40. So that's 80% of the grade. So from the students, think about from the students' perspective, we were all students. 40% for a final, 40% for a midterm. That's a lot. That's a big chunk of the percentage. That will incentivize a student to cheat when you're talking about big chunks of percentage. So what do? Scaffolding. So how can we do scaffolding? So let's break it down into smaller projects, right? And in between those smaller projects, there's going to be feedback. And so the culmination of all those smaller projects is the summative assessment of the full project. That's scaffolding. That will help your students a lot. Because a lot of the times when I see courses, it's really, okay, sometimes there's no formative assessment. There's no check-in to see where the student is or where they are and if there's any problems. the formative assessments are great because those will red flag those students who are not doing the homework, who are struggling. You can target those with formative assessments, low stakes. But with scaffolding, you can break down a giant semester-long project into smaller projects that then each part might have 5%, 10%, 15%. You know, it's not a one big shot that is very that could either sink or swim the student. So breaking it up into smaller pieces will help you. Those are 10 examples that I provided. I want to leave it up to questions and comments. We're at 150. And for anyone else to suggest ideas of what are you doing in your class that you want to share with the group or questions.
Hi everyone, Melissa here. Some interesting ideas have come up. In my experience, for example, just over the summer, there was a workshop on generative AI. And one of the major concerns that faculty had was about how to stop students from cheating. But the emphasis that the facilitators really directed our focus on was that don't focus so heavily on the cheating aspect. How can you reframe, tailor your assignments so that it's more interesting to the student, that is more relatable, both to the experiences and it connects. Because if the students are disconnected from the assignments that we're giving, one, it frustrates them. It also frustrates our own assessment because sometimes we're working from the same rubrics. We do not want to change them. We do not want, we sometimes just transfer assignments from one semester to the next. It's challenging, yes. But each time we're coming in with a new group of students, different experiences. And if we don't open up our platforms, our classrooms as safe spaces where these students' experiences inform what we do in the classroom, we are going to focus on how often they cheat. And we're going to find ourselves exhausted before the term has even ended because we're thinking, oh, did they cheat? Did they cheat? Did they cheat? But what are our assignments revealing? So in my experience, what I often do at the start of the semester, whether I teach synchronous, asynchronous, or in person, I really want to get to know the students. Professor Barton mentions the students' experiences, but how do you curate a self-introduction presentation in which the students describe, explain, illustrate the experiences for you? So sometimes it is freefold. I start with just impromptu writing, then that follows with a slide presentation, and then with a video, but also an in-person, if they're in-person presentation. But it begins by asking questions such as, what are your life experiences? How do you describe your family? What are your experiences? What are the 3 things that you find interesting about you? Why are you here? What are some of the challenges you have faced getting into college? So if we tailor it to what they're experiencing, then that gives us more information and data that we can now take into how we design our assignments. I also have another approach that I use. You mentioned small projects. So sometimes I have the students do what is called a community profile. They are building towards the end of the semester to do a research paper of 10 or 15 pages. But guess what? I need to know what about that course is going to connect to their lives. So in the community profile, I'm asking, what are some of the aesthetics in your community? What does your community challenge you to do? Can you show me some pictures? Walk around that neighborhood or that experience, that community you've lived in for X number of years, or the places you've been. What have been your experiences? What are certain sculptures that speak to you? What are the issues with lighting, with traffic, with subway? Because they commute all the time. What are some of the challenges to perhaps if you're a caregiver, navigating the curb cuts? So if we make those assignments integral to what our students need, what they essentially should take away from our courses, it makes it more meaningful. And I am not saying that they are not going to cheat. Sure, they may end up, because some of them do not have the words or the language to describe those experiences for you. And sometimes we don't recognize that our students, they sometimes in voluntarily cheat. They're not even aware that plagiarism from the way they're using it is wrong. They're going to take perhaps a paragraph wholesale, place it into their writing, and figure because you've asked them to explain, that's okay. But I think we need to come from a place of understanding and patience. It is time consuming, it can be frustrating, but let us get our students on to understand that their voices are an essential criteria to the work that they do, the final product when the course has completed. But if it is disconnected from what they need to experience and learn, then yes, our challenge, the floodgates have just been opened. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Pierre. I know Professor Barr has a hand up, but I want to say something real quick that you mentioned is the cat and mouse game. At this point, the reason why I opened up the workshop to show you all these tools that are popping up left and right is because at a certain point, I feel like this is a battle that like you said, I feel like it's a battle that is hard to win, number one, and it makes more sense to just start reimagining how we assess and go that route. Professor Barr, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think so, Melissa made a great point. I just didn't want to like go on, stretch my input too far, but I have a log of a lot of my students, what their likes and dislikes are, who's working in what field, who oversee 200 employees, who is the director, the facilitator where they work. So even though I said they went online and did this intro for me, what I failed to say was, I begin with, what are some of your likes and dislikes? Why are you here in this class? How do you feel this class relates to you? And I know about their kids and the different things they do. So it starts from a very authentic place, and then they're asked to go log that online, right? Because if I start with just the class and not hearing from them, which sort of like set me back sometimes a week, and then with the holiday when we start the fall semester, but I don't really come out of the gate strong like with chapter 1 until I get to know the individuals that I'm working with. And this is not, when you spoke about scaffolding, that too is really well. For my BMCC students, I use the concepts that I'm teaching to show them how they're relative to their business and help them build all their businesses from the ground up. So when they leave, some of them run with their businesses, some of them have their presentation on hold for their businesses, because then school is not why we're here, right? They feel, why should I take this class if I don't see how this stuff is relative to what I'm doing in the ER when I work there, or, the facility that I manage with all these people that are, have challenges, mental challenges. So I do start from an authentic place, and then, I synchronize the concepts that I'm teaching with how it's relevant to what they're doing, right? Else they'll sleep in class, else they won't have fun with the script, right? So the flip is well too. I try to incorporate, divvy it up, but they tell me what they like, right? So I work with their feedback. I take student feedback, and that's kind of what I use to employ with my decision making and how I structure my class. So it's a little different every semester, because the last group has told me what are some of the things they would have liked to see, and I employ it for the other group that's coming. So that's all I wanted to say.
I want to quickly address Professor Zhang on the chat. Number one, it's not, there's no easy answer to this problem. And Professor Zhang mentions all we're doing here is discussing how to stop the students from using AI for exams and homework. I feel using AI is unstoppable, and lots of these methods are very hard to implement for a large class size. I encourage my students to use AI as their study assistant and report back on what AI can't do, not good as their study assistant. What we really need to find an AI tool that professors can use to test and to find out if students truly learn what they should have learned and they have made an effort to learn. Thank you, Professor Zhang, for that. So yes, so there's a couple of things here, and I want to end with that question because I know we're at the two o'clock mark, and we do have part 2. If you want to join for the next one, Friday coming up, we'll continue the talk then. But I want to be mindful of everyone's time, and people might have meetings at 2 o'clock. So, but you hit two very important things, or maybe even three very, very important things you mentioned in there. Number one is yes, right? It could be Professor Barton mentioned it, and others mentioned it today, that it could be. I know professors who have retired because it was just too much already. They can't handle. It was just overwhelming the amount of cheating that's happened, and they just feel like, what's the purpose anymore? And then I'm just going to retire early. But that doesn't stop us from finding a solution. And that's the reason why we mention a lot of the solutions we mentioned a lot of alternatives to today. I hear what you're saying, that it could take up a lot of work depending on the class size, but this is why we talk and help each other, because when we come up with ideas, we share these ideas and then we find out better ways to improve on those ideas. Just by not trying something different is not the solution. I believe these workshops where we as educators come together and talk about the elephant in the room is a step forward, right? Like anything that I listed today in the guidelines is not going to be 100% foolproof, because as we know, anyone can just still pop out a cell phone, take a picture, and so that's not what we're saying here. I think is we have to continue testing. We have to continue looking at how can we reimagine assessments. I think that conversation has to continue. We shouldn't stop talking about it. And if it is for a large class size, let's talk about it, because if we talk about it, people are going to come up with better solutions. We're going to come up with a better solution. So I don't think not talking about it is not the answer. I think we should continue talking about it, because educators are pretty much left alone. As you saw in my article today, Google was not thinking about you guys, us. Google is more thinking about the dollars, right? They just want to put that tool out there and sell and make money. They're not thinking about the educators. They're not worried about the mess that they're creating, right? They're just putting a tool out there, and whatever happens, happens, and then you guys got to clean it up. So I'll end with that. But I thank you all for attending. This was recorded, and I will share the recording with you all. We'll have part 2 next, I believe it's next Friday. I will also share with you, I continue to add more workshops. If you have any
It
ideas.
is October. The next
October.
one is October 10.
Thank you, Professor Benezra.
Yes.
Thank you so much. October 10th, don't forget. I will also email you the workshop list, because I continue to add more. And if you have any suggestions, any for topics on workshops, please shoot me an email. I really value these talks, because I think the only way we can solve these issues is together as a group, interdisciplinary. I don't think that this is a department issue. I think this is an education issue. We all have to work on it together. I'll stop there. I think, Anna, you have your hand raised before we close.
Yes, good afternoon. Just quick question, and forgive me if you have sent this out or it's been sent via CUNY. But I'm tired of our student, I shouldn't say I'm tired, but they know so much more than us, right? So sometimes I want to ask, hey, where'd you find this out? Do you have any, I want to ask my kids, like, y'all. So, and a lot of times when CUNY sends stuff out and you try to register for like the free AI session to learn, you have to have like a student ID. So is there anything for us where we can actually learn and be as, trendy or as on top of things as them?
Yes. We have in conjunction with the AI task force and the IT department, we have AI roundtable talks that are coming out. These workshops will continue. We're putting together a teaching with AI course. So we are working because we're not waiting for the others, City Tech, we just have to do it ourselves because as we wait for other stuff, it's not going to happen. But I'm glad you mentioned. I'm glad you mentioned students. Sometimes we think students know a lot more than we do. Going back to Professor Zhang, he says that he encourages students to use AI, but sometimes students' mindset is in a way that minimal amount of work equals, what's the calculation? They usually think about what's the minimal amount of work for me to get the certain grade that I want, right? So that calculation to them is how can I do the least amount of work? And what that does is even though they might be a little bit more tech savvy than you, they have no idea how to use AI the correct way. And so that's that's a big part of the problem. And so going back to your point is we should, as educators, we should know how to use a tool as good as the students or even better, because then what we can do is we can create assignments using AI that are better assess the students' mastery. I think for me, I think that's been the best way is to learn how to use AI, reimagine the assessments using AI, and to get better authentic responses from our students. I think that for me has been my focus. I think that's the solution. But it involves us learning how to use the technology, also learning how to using pedagogical skills that forces or a framework that helps us design these assignments that produce better responses from our students, that they don't go out and start to just generate content and just submit it and think, okay, this is good, or this is okay. And so that's my take on that. I'll stop there because we went over, but let's continue the conversation. October 10th, this was great. I think it was very informative, and I thank you all for jumping in and sharing ideas and comments and questions. I will send you the recording so that we can review it. I'm also using AI to summarize the meeting, so you'll get a summarized report. So thank you again for attending. Have a great weekend.
You are not graded. That's okay.
And it's not graded.
So it's okay.
Don't worry about grading. No one will be graded.
So you are not graded. It's okay.
Take care, everyone. Have a good
Bye
weekend.
bye.
Thank you for joining.